We got a huge show for you guys today on the Wes Buck Show. We're going to be joined by the one and only Travis, the Carolina Kid Harvey. Then we'll be joined by Big J Harper, fresh off a monumental weekend at the Southern No Time Nationals. I believe the 7th annual running right down here at Extreme Raceway Park. And then we're going to round out the show with a conversation between ourselves and the man of the hour in NHRA Quarter Mile Pro Mod, the one, the only Ken Quartuccio Jr. Let's do this deal. Listen, I've never had any problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history, I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport. Drag racing. Prove me wrong. I'll wait. Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. A bit of a somber day here in American history. Our hearts go out to everybody that was affected by the tragedy of 9/11 and the attack on this great American country of ours, this great country of ours. And it's a beautiful day to be alive and to be an American. Wild times that we are living in, but I just definitely want to send a heartfelt condolences to everybody that was impacted by the attacks on New York City in 2001. It's hard to believe that it's been that long ago, but here we are, guys, and I'm excited to talk a little bit of drag racing with you. We got a lot going on in the sport right now. We've kind of belabored this point over the last several shows, but it's really amazing how far into the season we are. It seems like a blink of an eye ago. It was just the start of the season, and we were seeing all these new teams and new cars kicking out, blowing the cobwebs out of stuff and shaking down new cars and new combinations. But here we are. Record-setting season is upon us. We are headed in this weekend to the NHRA Pep Boy Nationals at Maple Grove Raceway, the House of Chaos, as it is known these days. Excited to see the NHRA turn up the heat during the countdown to the championship. We'll, of course, talk a little bit about that today. A multitude of storylines in NHRA competition right now. I believe JT's going to share some betting odds with us here in a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit of sports gambling. But before we do that, Door Slammer Racing, no secret, near and dear my heart, and we've had some great Door Slammer Racing over the course of the last couple of weekends. I got to say that I take a lot of, I hear it all the time, like, we know you're a Pro Mod guy, we know you're a Pro Mod guy. No, what I am is a Door Slammer guy. You're talking to a dude who was born and bred into Door Slammer drag racing, and if the driver's sitting on the left hand side and that bad boy's got swinging doors, I'm a fan of it, and I'm here to tell you it's the future of this great sport of ours. Drag racing is poised. The pumps are primed, my friends. What is happening in Door Slammer drag racing right now could not possibly be more exciting, nor more promising for the future of this sport. And I don't want anyone to ever get it twisted. While my personal cup of tea is big tires and wheelie bars, and I want the drag racing masses to recognize that Door Slammer drag racing is without question, and that encapsulates a lot, right? I mean, we got to cover a lot of ground with such a general term, Door Slammer drag racing, but I believe the tippy top of that is Pro Modified, but it runs all the way down through all these various small tire categories: no prep, small tire, big tire, no prep kings. It's 100% about Door Slammer drag racing, and that's what we built our brand on here at Drag Illustrated Magazine for 20 years, and it's, of course, my favorite thing to talk about, and we're going to do a lot of that today. But before we get our first couple of guests on here, let me introduce my co-host here on the Wes Buck Show, Mike Carpenter, JT Hudson. What's up, boys?
Yo.
What's up?
Swinging and ducking, you know.
Man, JT, I think, was asleep. You might have fell asleep during that intro.
I was kind of
wake up, bro.
Well,
come on, man. You got to get up in the frame here.
Hey, JT, you'll love this, man. Well, I was actually checking the weather for Reading because I knew you would ask me how it's looking for this weekend.
the weatherman.
It's looking good. Did you see? I mean, it's going to actually be a little bit warmer than what you might expect, because when you said record-setting season, the first thing that comes to mind is Maple Grove.
Yes.
In the fall. Like, that is the epitome of record-setting season. Looks like it's going to be fairly warm, like in the low 80s, but then cool at night and no rain. So should be a hell of an event.
I'm excited
good,
for
Mike.
it,
I wish you get like a green screen and
I'm going to one day. I'm gonna come on here and surprise you and have like full blown local weather graphics and everything.
I like it.
Should. You need to. I like all the infrared stuff. You know, Nike made a pair of Air Jordan. What were they? No, they weren't Jordans. I'm trying to think of which shoe it was. One of the shoes they did in that infrared, the radar. You know what I'm talking about? Like the weather radar design. I always thought it was.
They had the 3s and 4s. They had both in infrared, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But no, I really like that color scheme. But anyways, I'm excited. It's going to be nice, man. I mean, that's the biggest thing is that it breaks my heart every time I see one of these events, you know, hampered by poor weather. Yeah. And so it's nice to know that hopefully they got clear skies and sunshine for this weekend.
And speaking of NHRA, you know, before we pivot back, I saw a couple comments up here. We were hoping to have Rick Ware on today. We have actually rescheduled him for next Wednesday. He had some stuff come up. Busy man, of course. And we were excited to possibly have him on, but he's going to be on with bells on next week. So stay tuned.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I actually, you know, and it's Rick, you know, giving me a little bit of a hard time. I got to give one back. I spent about an hour preparing notes for Rick. So anyways, I'm going to shoot from the hip for the rest of the show, which is no surprise to those that know me best. But let's talk a little bit about this because there's so many really, like I said at the beginning of the show, there's a lot of great racing going on in indoor slammer drag racing kind of across the board right now. And I know there's a lot of different disciplines. We obviously beat the Pro Mod drum quite a bit around here. But looking this past weekend at the Southern No Time Nationals, what more can you say about Travis Harvey? Like, I'm genuinely excited to talk to this guy, but I was even having a conversation with my dad, and we were just running through like PDRA points and all these different drivers. And it's really hard to argue that the Carolina kid's not the best hand in the game right now. I mean,
There's no doubt. I've said that for years. I mean, we've known about him here in the Carolinas for, I think, probably longer than it feels like. I mean, Travis might hate me for saying this, but he looks young. He never ages. I mean, he looks the same as when I first met him, but he's been in the game for a while. But now he's on this national stage and running these, you know, huge money races, multiple disciplines of racing. But he's been, in my opinion, the best driver in drag racing for a long time.
Lance,
and I've stood on business on that, right, Lance? Lance knows. Lance, we've talked about it a lot.
That's a Dallas thing. That's a Dallas thing. Don't take it away from a Mavericks. But no, the homeboy does stand on business.
Oh, no, Mavericks don't own that. No.
I think we've got something
what?
To it. We popularized.
What'd you say?
Stand on business. That's a
I'm just saying
deal
it was.
now.
I understand it's a nationwide deal, but I digress. I don't want to argue about where this thing. But he does, as Jimmy Dale say, he's got that dog in him. And I got to say that Travis Harvey, what it is about him is that he is consistently that good. Because we see a lot of these drivers that are able to step up into the moments. Like I was looking at the stats.
And different things as well. Like it doesn't matter if it's grudge, radial, pro mod, whatever. Like
bracket racing.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's a driver.
He is a driver. And I'm really glad to see him having the success that he is right now because we need we talked about this last week with Clay Millican, like how important it is that some of these guys that are fantastic ambassadors for our sport, that have a story to tell, that have a personality, we need these guys in the winner's circle. It's fantastic. And I think it's super cool that if you think about the lay of the land and how things went down this past weekend at Extreme Raceway Park right outside of Dallas and Ferris, Texas, it was a cool thing to see Justin Swanstrom be so strategic about this. I mean, obviously, it's no secret. The lighter you can get the car, the better. There's not necessarily a rule book that's an inch thick when it comes to these no-time grudge race events. So it's a literal run what you brung on a certain set of tires on a certain track at a certain time. And to your point, JT, to see Travis be able to just jump in that car that he doesn't have a tremendous amount of experience in and perform at the level that he did, especially in an environment like that. Like, I can't wait till we roll the tape a little later in the show, because you're talking, if you want to talk about an electric atmosphere, look no further than what took place at the Southern No Time Nationals this past weekend, because the whole joint's jumping. There are people everywhere. You can feel the tension in the air. I mean, you can sense the energy watching it from afar, and just an incredible deal. And I'm genuinely happy for Travis. Again, I think that this is a great thing. And I may have,
well, it goes back to what we talked about the last couple of weeks and ties in with the newest issue of Drag Illustrated as well. 25 reasons to be excited about drag racing. One of our top ones is independent events are thriving. And to me, this goes back to that over and over. Everything we've talked about the last couple of weeks since we published that seems to come back to that same thing. And this was a perfect example of it.
I think that these, and we are in the process of obviously evolving the Drag Illustrated World Series of Pro Mod into what is now known as the Drag Illustrated Winter Series, a 3-race series in conjunction with Vic Alvarez and the gang at Bradenton Motorsports Park, encapsulating the Snowbird Outlaw Nationals in U.S. streets. But you're right, Mike. It's that independent, one-off type of environment that really is driving the bus in our sport right now. I remember a time, and I don't know what all has contributed to it. I think we could probably dive into that a little bit here today, but we are in the era of independent drag races. It's these big productions that have kind of a small town feel or a festival vibe. There's something of lifestyle events is really what has happened, in my opinion. And it's these days,
it's like
I
see
remember,
and be seen, man. Everybody I felt like had to be at that event this weekend because no one wanted that FOMO. Everybody had to be there. It was a see and be seen. If you're in that underground grudge world, any of this stuff, and you weren't there, it was going to be like a black mark on your name.
And they're getting called out for not making bets. They're getting called out for making bets. I mean, like it's pretty funny. I saw somebody get called out the other day that had been running their gums online and didn't place any bets, I guess, Oh, I did, just not with you guys.
Right.
But like everybody's getting called out now. And it takes something like that, like that's so big that even if you didn't bet, that those two teams are so invested that you're going to be invested as well.
I think that what we're seeing, because I remember a time when it seemed like every drag racer that I encountered, my own family, myself, the goal was always to be a part of a touring series, right? Like you wanted to go compete for points, go enter the NMCA and go compete for points, or go follow the ADRL back in the day, or go follow PDRA, or go compete for points in the NHRA. Like going and competing for a series championship is a big motivator, or historically has been in the sport of drag racing. But as we outlined in this most recent issue of Drag Illustrated, DI 190, it's on newsstands now. If you haven't seen it, check it out. You can log on to dragillustrated.com and take in the entire issue for free. But it really is a new age that we're seeing in this sport, where these independent events and more independent productions with real promoters, I think that that's a big part of it as well, is that and I'm not firing shots, so before anybody gets up in arms, but I think that a lot of these championship series kind of used the allure of winning a championship to promote their races. That was where the buzz was created, and you would follow along with the points all year long, and that was what kind of built up anticipation and interest in the event. But it kind of spoke to a super hardcore group of people, not the casual fan, the people that are following the points, or the people that follow along with every race. What these independent productions allow for, at least in my opinion, is to get fully invested in what's happening right here tonight. Like we don't care what happens next weekend. We don't care what happens after the countdown or during the playoffs. All the energy and attention and focus is on this moment, this weekend, this event.
You're able to throw a Hail Mary. I mean, you're able to throw it and not worry about, you're not going to sit there and jab. I guess if you're putting it into like boxing terms, but you can just go for it all in one night. Don't hold anything back.
And while I don't want to discredit all the great no-time racing, I see Lance Stanford in the comments right now. I've known Lance for almost 20 years. I mean, there's a lot of fantastic no-time racing going on. My dear friend, Mike the Hitman Hill, puts on a slew of fantastic events as well. But what I think I saw kind of come to fruition over the course of the last few days is what we've talked about on this very program a multitude of times, is that there is a future for match racing. I mean, that to me, what I took away from it, and I get goosebumps just talking about it. No. What I saw is we can build a show around. Now they had an 8-car shootout. They had a shootout, 100,000 to win shootout, and it was fantastic. I mean, you had a bunch of hitters in there, a lot of really fast cars, and a lot of really great drivers, and all sorts of betting and all these different things. It's fantastic. But the main event, without question, was ultimately the match race, the grudge race between Fletcher Cox's 69 Camaro with Jason Mahalik behind the wheel. Jason Mahalik's not a name we've seen in the drag racing world for a little while. Great to see him back in action, and especially in a moment like that. Like, what a warm-up event. What a bursting back on the scene. I mean, you can't really ask for anything more than that, and he did a hell of a job. But Fletcher Cox and Jason Mahalik going head-to-head with Travis Harvey and Justin Swanstrom, it forced people to pick sides, and it forced people to focus their attention on this singular matchup. And to me, it just screams that there is opportunity here. Like, as we move forward, we know so many of the fans there's a matchup that they want to see. You know, when they roll into the gates of when they buy their ticket and roll into the gates of a race, they've got their fingers crossed that they see Brittany Forrest and Steve Torrance, or they've got their fingers crossed. Back in the day, it was Clay Millican and Doug Herbert. Man, we want to see those guys race again, right? You're looking for those rounds of racing. Shannon Jenkins versus Jim Halsey. There's been a slew of these today. Todd Tutterow versus Melanie Salemi. Kurt Stedding versus Spencer Hyde. Yeah, I think a new rivalry that has been birthed in recent months is Jim Halsey versus Derek Ward, our finalist from the 2024 running of the World Series. But these things, there's something here, boys. I mean, I'm telling you, and seeing all the racers that have shown interest in this, I see somebody in the comments picking up on the fact that Stevie Jackson was clearly showing interest in the comments on one of the videos of the grudge race between Harvey and Mahalik. And we've seen several other one of those. I saw Scott Tidwell make a couple posts, wish they'd let us bring our 275 car. I guess that's a great place to start. Before we posted
a time slip.
Also, yes. Scott, what do you make of that? Like, I don't know how deeply or how closely you guys follow the no time world, but I really like it. I like the stipulations that exist, that if you want to be a part of this community, if you want to run in this circle, you can't light the scoreboards for a year prior. And I believe I saw J. Harper, and we'll explore this with him here a little later in the show.
Yeah, we need to get more of that, like details of how they come up with that, what it took to get to that point of that race. Like, because it's not just we show up and it happens. Like, it took, like you said, it's almost like a year of planning to get to that point, and that's what builds the anticipation. And I think it's more than just, like you said Harvey versus Mahalik. That's one layer to it. But then you've got Swanstrom versus Fletcher Cox. You've got Nitrous versus Blown. You've got a late model Lexus versus a 69 Camaro. I mean, what else? I mean, there's so many things. I guess the only similarity is both cars were black. Other than that, yeah. It's like pick your side, and you've got to have all those layers to this stuff. And I feel like that just adds to that. This is it. This one run for everything. The Super Bowl type thing, where it's not a series, not a best of 7. It's not, right. We had an off pass or an off game. It's all the marbles right now, just as like palpable tension, and that's what.
I could literally sit here right now
in the social media age.
It's 100%.
It's built. That kind of race is built for the social media age. And this kind of stuff has been going on for decades.
Do you think that's a lot of what it is, Mike? Just the era that we're in with the amount of, that's an interesting perspective, because I hadn't thought about it quite like that.
Because you're right. Something like that is not on TV. So you've got live streaming that kind of brought it to one level, but without, Swanstrom and his personal social media or his team social media, Travis, Jacob, Harper, and even guys like Jimmy Dale and anybody that's got a following promoting this deal, that just adds to it, and it adds to that FOMO.
Plus it happened for people that aren't there. It happened, when a bunch of people were there. People were in the stands, people were on the starting line. In drag racing, a lot of times when the main show happens, nobody's there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that we talk about a lot, right?
Yeah, and races like this have been going on, like I said, for decades. But unless you were there, or you knew about it ahead of time and made plans to be there, or maybe read it in a magazine, you weren't seeing it. But now it's covered from every angle, live in real time on all these people's social media. That to me is what has taken this type of racing to another level.
It has. And the social, you talk about it, I think it was specific to, I don't know that there was another group there that could have produced that moment outside of Fletcher Cox, Jason Mahalik, Justin Swanstrom, and Travis Harvey. Like, there was a lot of hitters on the property, don't get me wrong, and a lot of guys that are really prominent names in the grudge scene, the no time scene, but I don't know that would have been what it was without those characters. And it just speaks to the fact that, hey man, no shame. Those are the moments that are created when you have people that are willing to play the game, play along, be talkative, and it's not just about, I had a conversation with one of our World Series of Pro Mod drivers yesterday, and we were just talking about showing your personality and being willing to kind of put yourself out there. And they were quick to, well, I'm no Stevie Jackson. I don't know, a shit talker. It's not necessarily about being a shit talker. It's not about calling people names.
Stevie's not as much of a shit talker as everyone, I think, assumes. It's more about, like you said, just having that overall personality, and anything he says, people are listening to because of that, whether he's talking shit or not. And you have to kind of get to that level.
I'm excited about it, and I'm super excited to talk to our next guest. But before we do, I want to remind you guys that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of our friends at Stroud Safety. Stroud Safety is known for their top quality racing safety equipment, from drag chutes and seatbelts to fire suits and blankets, all 100% made in America. Log on to StroudSafety.com and make sure you tell them we sent you. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, the man of the hour. I don't know that I've seen this much action on social media, honestly, since earlier this spring. It's been months since we've seen this type of buzz around a singular drag race. The man, the myth, the legend, Travis, the Carolina Kid, Harvey. What's going on, buddy?
What's up?
We got to get a round of applause.
Travis, you're the first one they've ever clapped for. I've been trying to get the clap intro going.
Slow clap.
Dude, I've been trying to get the clap intro going for, I don't know, now.
Long time.
We did it for a little while, but we got to bring it back. For Travis, we had to bring it back.
We had to bring it back, man. Travis, I guess, where do we even start? Congratulations, man. If you don't mind, I'd love to just kind of know a little bit of the backstory. I mean, I think it's well documented at this point that you had this big money grudge race, but how did you, not to talk out of turn here, but I don't necessarily see you and Justin Swanstrom as old buddies. Maybe there's something I don't know. You kind of run in different circles. You're from the Carolinas. He's from Florida. You're a big part of the sportsman drag racing scene, the PDRA, and I mean, various other places. And you've got Justin operating at this point almost exclusively in No Prep Kings with, despite the random grudge race or what have you. But how did this come to be, Travis?
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, and been knowing Justin for a while, him in Big Country. I think probably 10 years ago, they got an engine from us, and through some other people. And he raced with me and Lance some in the Carolina No Time deal. And I think he came when he was running No Prep. So we've been knowing each other a while. And he hit me up about 2 months ago, and I got a text. It was like, yo. And I was like, what's going on? He said, how much do you weigh? And I was like 185 or something. He said, well, I got some plans. Would you be available to race at Big Jake's race at the end of the year? He had like 5 or 6 grudge races he planned to lock in, and I think they was locked in when we was there. And he said, meet me in Darlington, and that's all she wrote. I mean, we went there, and I talked to him in Big Country about some stuff, and I was going to drive it there, but I had another car I was driving, so we went over to Rockingham, and I fitted in it, and the second pass we was locked in for a grudge race. So
yeah, Travis starts every text with "yo," like what you said. So that's all you get, and I'm either scared to death or interested to hear what the next text is going to be after that "yo." But yeah, that's definitely Justin for sure. But yeah. We talked about it before you got on here. We were giving you your flowers before you even got on here, but what is it that makes you have that ability to just jump in seemingly anything, even back to back? I've seen you jump from a pro nitrous car into a pro boost car and literally have the exact same reaction time back to back. What makes it, gives you that ability or has led to this point where you can just jump in anything and drive it?
I mean, it's just repetition. I've been doing this for a long time. I started racing when I never raced a junior dragster, but I raced bracket cars since I was 13 years old. And I started running pro mods back in 2006 with Race Tech. And we just worked my way up. I drive anything. I can adapt pretty much to any type of car. And I just get in it and I fit in it. I feel good about it. So I just let everything else take its place, and I just try to do my job.
I think it really speaks to, and we're seeing this in a lot of different levels right now. I mean, pro modified, there's, the pro mod world has been on fire the last few days after Mark Mickey had his Titanic runs up at the Midwest Drag Racing Series event in Michigan this last weekend. And it's all about reps and sets at some point. I mean, no matter what you're doing, whether you're lifting weights, you're working on your business, or you're driving a race car, I really don't know that there's anything that's going to behoove you or improve your program more than making runs. So you're really, I mean, it's very logical, but it does seem like it's something that's lost in our sport at times, especially when you have this differentiation of people that do it for a living and you have people that also run businesses or work jobs, and it's hard for them to get the laps that a guy like you gets. But do you agree that that's something that's where our sport has kind of arrived, that if you're going to run at the level that people are running at today, you better be testing a couple times a month, you better be making some runs, you better do you agree with that that's kind of the nature of the game at this point? If you're not making a lot of laps, I mean, the days of unloading your car and blowing the dust off of it and going racing, they're long gone.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I don't bracket race as much as I used to, but going back to that, like when I go back bracket racing, I'm rusty because I don't do it as much, and I'm doing a lot of heads up stuff. So the more laps you can get in a car, it definitely helps, and you're more comfortable in it, and it definitely helps a lot of people. I see a lot of guys, run once a month, and you can look at some, the time slips or the reaction times and tell that they're rusty or the way they drive.
How much of that is it, like when you get in one of these cars, Travis, do you have like, there's a lot of these engine shops and different power providers that exist in our sport that are, how do you say, they kind of have a standard operating procedure, like, hey, run our engine, our converter, that we'll tell you what converter to run, we'll tell you what transmission to run, we'll tell you what gear ratio to run, we'll tell you what tire to run. Do you have something like that for your driving program where you want things in a certain place? Like, do you jump in these cars and just adapt to them, or do you ask the guys and gals that you drive for to put anything in place to make you especially comfortable?
Just only my stuff that I drive, a lot. I pretty much have it the way I want it. But just like Justin's car, he's a big guy, and I told him I'll be fine in it. I never told him to change anything. The way the steering is, the seat pour it's all the same. Some of these smaller cars, like stock suspension stuff we race, it's a lot smaller. I really don't change. I just adapt to what's in it and just try to do what I can to make it better for me. But I don't ask the guys to change anything up unless, like I said, it's my stuff that I could.
That makes it.
It just makes it even better.
Right.
I mean, it just makes the story even better.
Makes it even more impressive.
Yeah.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite, combination at this point to get behind the wheel of? Is it nitrous, blown, small tire, big tire? I mean, what's your? Maybe you don't want to say, but what's your? You got so much experience in all these different combinations now. What if you had to pick or build your own ride? What would you do?
I love big tire nitrous car. The big dog Corvette where I race. I mean,
you're going to heaven. I mean, it's set.
I mean, we get to work on it, and I get to do a lot of. I actually tune it, and so it's a little more gratifying when I win in that car. But the radial stuff is easy. I mean, it's 10 times easier than a big tire nitrous car. Like Justin's car drives like a Cadillac. It's probably the smoothest car ever driven. I mean, it's just a lot. The big tire pro mod stuff, but screw blowers they're awesome to drive. I mean, they got a lot of power, but I'm a nitrous guy.
No, there's no shame in that game, my friend. I'm curious if you could, one of the things that I think I wrote a story many years ago now. It was actually the first time Stevie Jackson had ever appeared on the cover of the magazine. And I spent a day with him and followed him around. And this is back when he was selling tools, right? I mean, he was a tool truck sales guy, going around from shops selling tools. And I remember having a conversation with him about how different it is racing with your own money on the line. Like, it's a totally different feeling for the drivers and everybody that's involved. I mean, it's great, don't get me wrong, but if you lose in the final round, like at the NHRA US Nationals as an example, sure, you're bummed, you didn't get the points, you don't get the trophy, you're not a part of the history books or whatever, but it's not like you had to pay the other driver out of your own pocket. I mean, you lost money that wasn't yours to begin with. But when you go down to Jake Harper's Southern No Time Nationals and you find yourself in a $200,000 grudge race, I sometimes think that is lost on people, that they don't understand that this money is going to change hands here tonight. And it's not money from a promoter. It's not money from a sponsor. It's money that these guys put up a pot and someone's going home with empty pockets. How much does that, I mean, just talk about the atmosphere and what comes when there's like I said, I don't mean to downplay the significance of any of these other races at all. We put them on, so I'm a fan of it all, but it is a whole different ball game when it's your own money.
Yeah, it is. I mean, putting up that kind of money. I mean, I put a little bit in, but not like some of them guys did. It's totally different. It's a lot of pressure, and the best part I like about it is all the people around, and just I don't get to see it because I'm at the finish line, but that's the awesome part of it. Just being around all the fans and just the crowd, and it's packed. I mean, Big Jake race was awesome. I mean, it's probably the biggest no time race this year. I mean, or ever.
It's up there.
I mean, it was just the competition was so stiff. I mean, it's a lot of fast cars there, a lot of tuners. Like the no time stuff it's like class racing now. Everybody's got the best equipment and the best tuners and drivers, and to race for that kind of money is something else. I mean, a lot of people don't understand what it takes to do it, and to be able to just finish it, and it's just hard to do.
How do you stay calm in that moment? How do you keep that
because
heart rate in check? I mean, what makes you're calm, cool, collected now? You always are. I've never seen you be any other way than you are right now. What, like, as far as your upbringing or, things you do outside of racing, what makes you, your guys in shape and I'm sure, athletic, what physically and mentally gives you that edge and allows you to perform, but also remain calm in a massive stake situation like that?
Well, I mean, I work for a living. I own a flooring company, and so I'm very impatient. I mean, everything's got to be perfect for the guys that work with me. So it's kind of hard to work with me some, but the racing stuff, I try to go and have fun and just relax and enjoy it. But going back to that race, yeah, I mean, you probably think I was calm, but I really wasn't. Like when Big Country told me we were running for $100,000, I was like, oh shit, And so I got nervous, and we ran for 4 hours, so I had a lot to think about. And but actually, when I got in the stage lanes, got in the car, it was just like driving, making a test run. I just block all that stuff out and try to do what I need to do to win.
Does it take us through that? Because I don't believe this race was locked in. I mean, I'm sure there was rumblings and whatnot, but that, the car that Fletcher Cox is running, well-known hot rod. I mean, for those students of the game, that's Barry Mitchell's old 69 Camaro, the famed and feared black 69 that had a blower motor in it. It's seen a multitude. Tim McCamus built, latest, greatest, super nice car. But that's a relatively new combination. They just brought that thing out. So how did this come to be? And take us through that. I mean, I want to hear the story of Big Country rolling up to you and saying, hey, we got $100,000 put on this deal. I mean, tell me about that.
Well, I'll tell you from the start, like I was planning to be there to race all the grudge races. Justin had 6 races locked in. One was Thursday night. So I couldn't be there on Thursday. I had Big Dog. So he hired Marcus to come in to drive that night, and he actually won the grudge race against Jesse James' crew. So I came in, I flew in Friday, and I think we were supposed to have one Friday or 2 Friday, and the rest on the next day, Saturday. So I think we got, it rained. We got one shakedown, and actually we ran beside Fletcher's car in the shakedown. So that was kind of it was kind of a chess match there. I think that's what started the race, the grudge match, because like I said, we both lined up beside each other, and I was driving and Jason driving. So we had the car soft because it was first time in the car there, first shakedown. And he was out there on me. We left together, and he pulled me, and he lifted, and I made a 3/4 track pull. So that was kind of what started the deal. I think they felt like they was very confident on they could beat us, but they really didn't know what we was doing. So we went in the first round and we won. Both of us won, and I think we got in the third round, and Jake said we was gonna finish the race on the next day, Saturday morning. It was actually Saturday morning. At 6 o'clock we stopped. So we started back. I think we got there at 7 drivers meeting to finish the final 8. And in the drivers meeting, I never went to the drivers meeting. Justin went or his dad went. So it was 8 cars to pull, and Justin and Fletcher pulled each other first round. I'm at the 4th round. So They was talking about locking in. I think it started with 30,000. Then I think Fletcher said 50, and then he said we want to run for 100. So Big Country said lock. 20 on 100. And that, I know Fletcher, he's got plenty of money. Don't matter, but it don't matter if he wants to bet 200,000. Big Country is going to say lock because he's prepared to. It didn't matter. He wasn't going to punk him down. He was going to bring whatever it costs. He was going to do it. Whatever he had, he was going to lock it all in. And he had some backing there to do it. So that's how I got started. And that was all she wrote.
It literally
that's badass, man.
It is absolutely badass. And that's one of the things, but hasn't that been something that has hindered no time racing in the past? Because I remember I went to a no time race in Macon, Georgia 100 years ago now with John Ford III, legendary drag racing photographer, a member of our team here at Drag Illustrated. And we stood around for hours and hours and hours and hours and never got any races off that were meaningful. A lot of the stuff that we had that were planned earlier in the week or months in advance ended up not happening. And I think that it's kind of like, that's what maybe Big Jake has brought.
Reluctant to lock. Yeah. But you don't want to show up to that deal. And like you said, come away from there without locking. I mean, you got to be prepared when you go in.
Oh, there he is, the man of the hour, ladies and gentlemen. Big J Harper, Southern No Time Nationals. It's being billed as the greatest no time race in the history of drag racing. Big Jake, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you guys for having me.
No, of course, brother. Well, hey, we were just talking to Travis about this primarily about the grudge race that took place between himself and Jason Mahalik. But I'm just curious, like, what I would like to know a little bit about what we were talking about is the air that is generated when you're betting your own money, right? I mean, how much do you think that adds to the energy? Because it completely changes the atmosphere. I mean, there's a lot of big money races that exist in drag racing, but it's a whole different ball game when you're betting your own dollars.
Absolutely. I mean, when you are betting your own money, it's just a whole different kind of feel, because in that sense that those guys was running for a pot while running for a purse. So when you run for a pot, you run usually for your own money. And like I've grudge raced plenty of times, and it's one of those situations where you just gotta have your shit together. It's just it's the whole feel, the dynamic of a grudge race is nothing like it. Running for your own money is nothing like it.
No, it's like I said, it's a very storied thing because it's a dramatic departure from what most drag racers or drag racing fans are really used to seeing. And I think that's why we see the big energy. JT, why don't you go ahead and roll that grudge race clip? Shout out to Jimmy Dale, got us a killer shot from the center of the track. I think this is a good time to roll through this, and you're not going to see energy or atmosphere.
Track staff guy was outnumbered.
Yeah, track staff guy was outnumbered. Jimmy Dale looking up at the camera, making sure he got the shot, probably.
He got the shot. He got a hell of a shot.
And I mean, there's thousands of people behind this camera and over it. Look at the stands over here on this left side. What we were talking about this before you got on here. Take us through the lead up to this event. I mean, it's been in the works for a while, but how do you get to this point, and what is different about this event this year compared to in the past that's taken it to this next level? Because this is probably going to go down as one of the most talked about races of the year, hands down. So just take us through what you see as far as how it got to this level and maybe even where you go from here.
I mean, how it got to this is, me and Dominique having a conversation, maybe I would say right after March, about potentially doing a $100,000 race. But, he kind of wanted to wait till next year to do it. Months go by. Then here comes, I think June. And I was like, man, we can't wait. Let's do it. Let's do it now. You sure? I said, yeah, I'm sure. Let's do it. So it pretty much, right after my June race, I put a flyer out. First I put kind of like a filler out for the racers, what y'all think about $100,000 to win. But I would ask them to double what they put up, because it was always $50,000 to win, which it was $1,250 to enter. So I knew I needed a commitment from them to actually make this work. And every single racer said, count me in. Let's do it. Let's do it now. Let's not wait. Let's do it now. So at that point, I was like, yeah, we can pull this off. But I know if we do pull this off, it's going to change our lives, mine specifically. So it was one of those deals to where once they all committed, I was down. Obviously I'm down. And so then come the flyer, excuse me, a flyer that has 6-figure, 100,000 to win. It's just different. And like I say, all my racers, which my core group of bear shit only racers, are the best racers in the business. They don't cry, they don't complain, they don't do anything but show up and race. So like the process to me was, I'm not gonna say easy, because promoting races like this isn't easy at all. But when you got a good group of racers like I have, the job is easy. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
100%.
it's just not hard, because those guys gonna always show up, and they're gonna always show up and race, because ultimately that's what they built these cars for. Like they built these cars to race. So, but I kind of had a feeling coming up to the race, because typically on a race, even big races, the week of, maybe 2 weeks prior, my phone is just blowing up. Literally, my phone has been blowing up for the last 2 months on this race. I knew that if Mother Nature agreed, that this was going to be a huge race, and we had perfect conditions. Like, it's going to be back to 100 degrees next week,
Right.
here. So like, I don't know what happened, but the stars just kind of aligned. And, I think the man above wanted to see this, you know what I'm saying? So it was one of those deals to where it just turned out perfectly. And, of course we had our bumps and bruises along the way, but, that's just things that on my end that I could make things better, for our fans and our racers, for the experience that you get when you come to a Big J Promotions race. So, I mean, where I go from here, I keep on going up. That's like, even like the grudge race, I'm going to always ride with Fletcher. He's my brother, period. Everyone knows that. After that race, I was done with it. It was over for me. I move on, So like with this race, I'm always thinking of how I can get it better. How can I make the experience better?
Oh, we lost him. I bet someone called him.
Yeah, probably.
I bet somebody called him. It's the
That's the
classic.
culprit.
It's always the culprit. We'll get him back in just a second, JT. Travis, why don't you take us through, before we get Jake back on here, we'd be remiss not to talk about your final round, and it was an absolute bummer that we didn't get to see Rylan Hubbard and you guys ultimately run for the money. But it was great to see a young, fresh face out here in a big-name car. Jeff Niser's very, very well-known Camaro, the nitrous Jeff Niser, Nine-Finger Niser himself. It was great to see him racing and see Kenny Hubbard out there helping, and to see Rylan in the car. But why don't you just take us through kind of the final of the shutdown, or the actual shootout, and then we'll dive back in and we'll cut you loose, my friend.
Yeah, after we ran Jason Mahalik and Fletcher, we was down to the semis, and we had to run another heavy hitter. It was some guys that's close to my area. The car Black Nasty, Phil Schuler tunes, Scott King drives. We had to line up beside him in the semis, and we was fortunate enough to get by him. So we was it was the final round. I think Jeff Niser's car had to run Bodie in the semis, and he won. So we had to run him in the finals with Kenny Hubbard tuning. Kenny came over and said they had some converter issues, and we told him we would wait. And he came back and said the transmission's messed up, so we gave him more time. And we tried to do what we could, do, because we wanted to run the final beside somebody for the fans. We wasn't trying to do it just to, get up there and make a run, but we wanted to race against somebody. But it was getting late, and we all had to catch flights that morning to get back home. So we had to go, and they was understanding. They said if they wasn't ready, just go ahead.
Well, you can't really ask for much more than that. I mean, I think that to go to kind of piggyback on Big Jake's point. Excuse me, guys. We're so lucky to have such an incredible group of people that we like. I tell people all the time that I pinch myself every day that I get to be a part of the drag racing community, because I don't know that there are very many other places. And I don't mean to fire shots, but I don't know that you can take your kids and let them wander around at an NFL game, or take your kids to a Major League Baseball game and let them wander around. But you could do that at a drag race, because everybody there is going to look out for them, help them if they fall down. I mean, we all get a little wild and crazy and it gets amped up and whatnot, but this is at its core, this is a great group of human beings that would go a long distance for one another. And I got to give you, before we cut you loose, Travis, just congratulations, man. And I think it's a hell of a stand-up thing to do, to wait as long as you guys did, to try to give Big Jake and all those thousands of fans that showed up at Extreme Raceway Park the show they deserve. But I tell you what, they got one. They got a hell of a show. And I can't wait. It almost sets us up for the sequel, because now we're all waiting with bated breath to see what comes next, Travis. So, hey, man, congratulations on all your success. Give our best to Justin Swanstrom and company, and we'll talk to you soon. We're going to dive in a little deeper with Big Jake here.
Okay. Thanks, Big, for having us, man. It was an awesome show.
Thanks,
Congrats, Travis. Hell of a show, brother.
Thanks.
Big Jake, what I want to know about you more than anything is just what's the origin story on this? Because that's what I want to know. Like, when did you, I know this was the 7th annual running of the Southern No Time Nationals, but kind of tell us how you got started in promoting these events. And because you clearly have a knack for it. Like, one of the things that I'm impressed by is your just willingness to engage. You're always a part of the conversation. You're super active on social media. You guys do a great job with just engaging the fans, engaging the racers, keeping shit stirred up. Even when there's not anything to talk about, you'll come up with something to talk about. So what background do you have that led you to this moment, or how did this seed get planted?
It got planted because growing up, every Friday night we would go to Texas Raceway, Kennedale, to watch, Galen Smith and these guys run Pro Mars, Graham McCrary run King of the Hill, and that kind of stuff. But Sundays we was always at Yellow Belly. No matter what, Sundays was Yellow Belly days. And kind of my father gave me a Camaro that he ran for the longest. So I started out kind of running that car, but I knew, like, around here they didn't really have the kind of races that I was chasing, so I ended up having to go to Mike Hill's race, and once I went to a race that he promoted, he did at the House of Hook, I was, me and Daniel, my right-hand man, we rode back from that race and said, man, we got to get back over here. We got to get back over here because we had such a good time. It rained us out, so we didn't even really get to race, but the atmosphere and the energy was something that I was craving. So then I told him, it's like, I don't want to have to go 15 hours to get this though. So that's kind of how it started on me throwing races, me promoting races. And my first race I did in Shreveport, Louisiana. I would prefer to have done it home and didn't, but for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. So I went to Shreveport. That was my first race ever. That was the Southern No Time Nationals 1. That was the birth, the birth that kind of got me started. But I will say that was a pretty big race for me, and pretty much anyone in grudge racing was at that race. It gave me the credibility to basically do whatever I wanted to once that race was done.
Yeah, I mean, it's fast forward 7 years. Like, tell me about some of the lessons that have been learned along the way, right? Like 7 years, 7 different events. You've obviously evolved. I love hearing you talk about. I saw you make that post on social media. Where do you go from here, Jake? And it's like, well, we go up is what we do. We continue to improve this. But tell us, take us through a little bit of. You mentioned some bumps and bruises. I'm sure there were some trials and tribulations along the way. The last, damn near a decade now that you've been doing this. What have been some of the lessons that you've learned, and where do you continue to find inspiration?
I mean, honestly, I find inspiration in the racers because they always push me to, kind of continue to make the experience better for everyone. And, along the way, I've learned so many things. I try to learn something from each race, as far as making the experience smoother and whatnot. But like as far as like the business aspect of the whole deal, my wife, she handles pretty much all that, and she learns stuff. But like what I have learned the most is to kind of just stay out of her way and let her continue to basically make me look good and make my brand look better by actually, handling the business aspect of throwing a race. Like just this particular race, for instance, we had to close the spectator side probably like around 8:30, 9 o'clock. It was at capacity. You know, like certain things like that kind of bothers me, but I know going forward what I need to do to kind of remedy that situation a little bit. Even the pit side, there's just things that I kind of put in my mental notes, like, okay, I can do this, I can do that to kind of make the experience better, getting people in faster, getting them on the fence or in the stands to watch the great show that we provided for everyone that chose to support a Big J Promotions race.
I tell you, man, I would love to just know, like, when you look at that video we played a second ago, just what kind of pride do you feel? Because honestly, I feel it for you, but when you see all those people in the stands and people piled all around the starting line, and they're there because right now, all these great races are fantastic. But one thing that I feel, if you look at our sport, and people get tired of me saying this, but it's true. Every category or every part of drag racing that's hot like fire right now, there's a singular person, a charismatic character that is leading the charge. I mean, I look at Nostalgia Nitro Funny Car Racing and Nitro Funny Car Racing in general. You got Chris Graves. Chris Graves is leading the charge for Nitro Chaos, Funny Car Chaos. I mean, you've got someone leading the charge. Same thing with Donald Long in the radial tire scene. You've got someone leading the charge. I look at Tyler Crossno leading the charge for PDRA. I mean, it's such an important thing to have somebody that is the tip of the sword, right? Because the example I always give is that I don't know that Hulk Hogan or Andre the Giant ever would have been Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant without Vince McMahon. So these promoters are really important to the future of our sport. So, I mean, how do you feel when you think about all these folks that came from all points of the country, all over to little old Ferris, Texas, to Big Jake's drag race?
Man, it's honestly, truly a blessing, that everyone chose to show up at this race. And man, we had a lot of people, a lot of people show up at this race, but that one particular race, which people gonna talk about that race forever, which, that's the nature of the business, nature of the motorsports business. But man, like, that's one thing I tell people, like our fans, surely it was a lot of people up on the starting line, but they respect the racers. They stay out of the way. They let, the racers do their thing. But yes, it was a lot of people. I was up there, which that's one thing about it. I typically lately have not been on the starting line for my races. But this particular race, I knew I had to show my face more, and that single race was worth the price of admission, because we had two excellent groups of people, from every level, from owner of the car, the tuner of the car, the driver of the car, the crews of the car. Like this is the top notch group. Both of these guys, both of these teams, and man, when they both turned it loose, it was just like, I mean, it's like it's just. I mean,
I got goosebumps again.
Like you really can't even put it into words just how much that single drag race did for not only grudge racing but the racing community as a whole. That was a hell of a race. Like there's no doubt about it. You had to wait for the light to come on to see who won, and that's all you could ask for. Win or lose, that's all you can ask for.
You couldn't have asked it. You couldn't have scripted that any better. But that's kind of actually a fantastic segue. And I appreciate your time, Jake. And we won't keep you too much longer. But I do think we've been talking here at Drag Illustrated and on this very show for months and months and months now, that I do think that we may be staring down the barrel of kind of a new age in drag racing, because I honestly think that you could have sold that amount of tickets for that race. I mean, we see it all the time. Like, I mean, I'm headed to Vegas this weekend for UFC 309, and there's a fight you want to see, right?
Right.
You're going to go see a certain fight. You want to see Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson or whatever the case may
100%.
be. Do you feel like there's maybe an opportunity here to do more of that? I mean, I'm sure it's hard to encourage these guys to bet big, crazy money, but what it told me, the money mattered,
Right.
but it was more than the money. Like it wasn't
It was
just
100%.
the money.
No, 100%. Because that's the thing about this kind of racing, and kind of like even like the bear shit only. Like we like to do that race twice a year. That's it. You know, and we don't really want to water it down. We don't really want to, because I know, especially for me, it takes a lot out of me throwing these races. That's why I typically do them 6 months apart. But like for that single race, I think, if you have that single race anywhere in America, I think it'll sell out a track.
I do too.
Because like that group, you're going to get your best foot forward. You're going to get a drag race. And pretty much when you show up to a racetrack, that's what you want. You want a drag race. You want a hell of a drag race. You want basically the drivers and the tuners to determine who wins. And that's exactly what we got on that particular deal.
It was absolutely incredible, Jake. And I couldn't be happier for you, nor more proud of you. You're doing great things. I sent you a text the other night and I said, man, thank you. Thank you for doing this. We need more of it. I mean, it's going to take an army to get the sport of drag racing where it belongs, and it takes every one of us. So thank you so much, man. Congratulations. And thanks for spending a little bit of time with us this afternoon.
Thank you guys for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, buddy. Stay out of trouble and we'll talk soon. All right.
Yes, sir.
Hey guys, I want to take a quick second here and remind you that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by our friends at Redline Synthetic Oils. Redline has a reputation with racers and hardcore enthusiasts for creating products that protect and perform better than any on the market, and they've been doing it since 1979. Whether it's your race car, your tow rig, your motorcycle, or your lawnmower, when you think about lubricants, you need to think about Redline. For more information, log on to redlineoil.com. And I got to tell you guys, if we don't see more of these things, because when I start seeing Mike, JT, I mean, are you not dying to see some billing that is, we're going to put together the titans of this sport? We're at a point right now. We actually just ran a social graphic on the Drag Illustrated Facebook and Instagram pages talking about there were 618 entries at the OG million dollar bracket race on Tuesday night. 618 cars. Yeah. Absolutely insane. But I will tell you that I do think we have arrived at a time in drag racing where almost every event is measured by car count, right? Like everybody is quick to talk about how many cars were there. We had 600 cars. We had 500 cars. We had 300 cars. Indy the last weekend, 903 cars. I do think that we almost are going to need to embrace a little bit of a mindset shift that it only takes 2 cars to have a drag race. And we saw that this past weekend, that singular drag race can be enough if the buildup and the content and the everything around it is sufficient. I mean, a lot of times in pro wrestling, I actually read a study a couple weeks ago that like at WrestleMania, I think it's 6 hours long and 40% of it is actually wrestling.
Right. Every show is that percentage.
How many times have we talked about it with JT with Street Outlaws? I mean, at the height of Street Outlaws, you watch an episode of Street Outlaws, I would say it was 80-20, maybe 90-10. Drama and, talking shit and whatnot. And then the end of the show was a race.
To attract fans and attract the mainstream. That's what that show has to be. I think the U.S. Nationals and the million, all these participant driven, where it's just, awesome to see the number of rigs and cars on the property. Speaks to the health and the economic impact that this sport has. But as far as reaching to the mainstream, as far as entertainment and putting all the chips on one race or one pair down the track, it's like a Super Bowl mentality. It's almost like March Madness versus the Super Bowl. March Madness, you love it because it's just chaos and there's just game after game after game after game, right? That's almost the attraction of that. The Super Bowl, it's one game. It doesn't matter what's led up to that point. Yeah. You could go out and have the best or worst night of your life and ruin. That might be your only chance to ever get to the Super Bowl, and it's all the stakes on the line. And I think human nature gravitates towards that. And that's what we saw this weekend. But I think you can have both. It doesn't have to be either or.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It's two different shows, right?
Yeah.
Because some people probably wouldn't like the show with 900 cars. I mean, if you're going to be there all week and it's a marathon, right? But if you wanted to go on a Friday and Saturday night, you want to see the main events, play out in front of you. So, I mean,
well, and it's also like we talk all the
shows.
time, like one of the big, the reason I bring it up, and I always like find a way to make these things about, evolving the sport. But one of the things that I talk to people all the time about is tightening up the show. Like these races take too long. There's a lot of comparisons. People like to compare drag racing to NASCAR or drag racing to IndyCar or drag racing to stick and ball sports. And, the game's over in 3 hours and we've got to find a way to make these events happen faster. Well, I think the answer is staring us in the face. You've got to get the right people and the right amount of, pre-content, post-content that you can tell a good story. And you can probably create a very similar outcome with just one pair of cars, because it's just a different approach. But we've kind of got to open our minds to it a little bit, because if we want to, I mean, 2 weeks ago on Netflix, they had Joey Chestnut versus some Kobayashi guy for a hot dog eating competition.
Yeah,
and and if you looked at the production value of it, it was off the charts. Netflix spent buku dollars doing this, and it was two guys eating hot dogs for 15 minutes.
I emailed him, told him that Mike would win that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Mike's a shoe-in.
We got to get a beer drinking contest, JT.
I will enter. I tell you what, I will lock in with anybody right now. JT, beer for beer. I'll lock in with any. Call me Big Country. I'll lock in. Get a pot up and I'll match it, because let's lock in a beer drinking competition for JT.
But I don't know. My wife had a talking to with me, so I'm going to cut back.
Oh boy.
Well,
you guys have been together for about 30 years. And she's just now having to talk with you.
Yeah, it's just I go pretty hard. Hell, I knew it was going to happen eventually.
I mean, I just think it's for me. I do think that there is perhaps there's a different way for our sport to unfold in the future. And like I said, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be either or. I actually am really against that either or mentality, right? But it's
different things. One is the human side of it. That's why everybody was invested in that race this weekend. Or it's just the absolute spectacle and racing, and you want to see every type of car that there is out there in every class, and you are a fan of the spectacle that drag racing can be. I think you can have both, and we're at a point where we've got great shows for both. It used to only be the other way, if you think about it. Now we've got both, and I think it's a great thing for the sport.
I couldn't agree more. Well, guys, we've got a fantastic guest in the green room. Made history at the NHRA U.S. Nationals just a few short weeks ago. We weren't able to get him on the show right after the race, but I'd love to welcome to the show the one and the only winner of the 70th annual NHRA U.S. Nationals in Pro Modified competition, Ken Quartuccio Jr. What's going on, buddy?
You guys
got to get applause.
You do clap. Yeah. There you go.
It's King Ken. Did you see the graphic that JT made for you?
He didn't like the graphic.
Ken.
I told him take it down. I wouldn't share it because it looks stupid.
That's JT's specialty. Stupid shit is JT's specialty. You got to go with
it. It's right up my alley.
Right up.
I thought he stole that from the Battle of the Thrones, because that's kind of what I had to wear there. Is that?
Oh no, I didn't. I actually, that was actually an actual king or something.
A full-blown Photoshop. It was probably King Henry or something. JT's big on Photoshop, guys. Well, hey, let's run through the NHRA U.S. Nationals. We had an incredible field of cars, Ken. I mean, quarter mile pro mod, pretty much the final frontier for quarter mile pro modified racing is the NHRA drag racing series. We've seen something of a rejuvenation in quarter mile NHRA legal pro modified racing. A few years ago, it kind of felt like, the future was a bit uncertain, but we saw a fantastic field of cars getting down in Indianapolis. And I was looking through this, and we talked to Travis Harvey earlier in the show about, rising to the occasion, being consistently good. And I look at your lights, man. I mean, in the final, you're 029, 023, 025. I mean, what can you say about kind of finding your groove or getting some momentum? I mean, you guys have had a fantastic 2024. I mean, do you sense that personally? Do you feel like you guys are on a roll?
Oh, yeah. I worried at the beginning of the season because I felt that we did good at Phoenix. We runnered up there. Chicago, we qualified number 1. And I was afraid we were going to peak then. And I'm just getting to know these guys, and we're just getting to know kind of what each other does and how we race together. And I was afraid. But then pretty much Virginia, we went to the second round, but we all left that race at the end of the countdown, and we were all hugging each other, high-fiving, even though we lost, because we knew we were on the upswing. I drove well. Brandon had the car running good. Everything went good. And then this summer, I just kind of relaxed. I just didn't really give it a lot of thought. And going into Indy, I felt good. I never was really too nervous. And even in qualifying, my lights were really good. First round, I was a little bit slow on the tree. But Sydney had gone to the throttle before I lit my second bulb, and I happened to look over. But other than that, I felt good. And we have so much confidence right now. I could probably say that I feel better now about going to Charlotte than I've ever felt like when I was leading PDRA last year or in the past other series. I feel good right now. And this team they make you feel good. So, stuff like that, helps a lot. And I'm excited.
Oh, dude. I mean, I don't know how could you not be. And I mean, if you look at the field right now, I mean, I'm looking at the points standings in the NHRA, the Congruity NHRA Pro Mod Series. You got yourself out front, number 1, Kevin Rivenbark, Jose Gonzalez, Billy Banaka, Justin Bond, Chris Thorne, a former champion. I mean, you're going up against some of the best in the business. Nobody is a slouch. Everybody's got world-class equipment. I mean, could you reflect on racing at this level a little bit? I mean, I'd love to know what it felt like just to be at Indy and to be a part of such a historic event. I mean, most drag racers worth their salt would crawl across broken glass to be in the final at Indy at the U.S. Nationals. So, I guess before we talk about just the greater state of Pro Mod and quarter mile Pro Mod, what was it like for you, just that moment, being there with your family? I actually bumped into you and your daughter in the pits early in the weekend. Tell me about just being a part of such a celebrated event. We were talking about 900 cars in the product. Just being at Indy can be a touch overwhelming.
Oh, yeah. And I was on your show a couple years ago, and I was 100% advocate for outlaw racing. I was 8th mile, and I raced quarter mile back in the 90s. Northeast Pro Mod used to be a quarter mile series. So the last couple years, like I said, I was on your show and I'm saying PDRA, I got PDRA blood running through my bones, and I'm an outlaw racer, and the Florida series was all I cared about. And then I filled in for them last year, did a couple races, and I was like, there's something here. And then I was fully hooked. And then going into this season and just seeing how well NHRA is running, the competitors are great. The competition is hard. It's not like, what I was expecting, how hard it was and how hard the tuners had to work and how hard you had to run the cars. And then going to Indy, I didn't really gather it until I don't know, probably after first round. I was thinking, I thought I'd do okay, but I didn't think we really found something yet. And honestly, I thought Lyle was going to be the choice. When me and Lyle ran each other or in qualifying, after Q2, he was 3rd and I was 5th we were 4th and 5th. And I'm like, man, I'm going to have to race him second round. And then we go up for Q3 and I moved back 1 spot and Lyle moved up 1 spot. And I'm like, oh, thank God I don't have to race him. I get to the end of the track and they're like, no, dummy, you still got to race him second round because you guys are 3 and 6 now. And like I said, I thought Lyle that's who my choice would have been. That really would have done good. But, once we got by him, I felt really good. And I didn't try to think about the race. And afterwards, we're cleaning up. And I got to know Larry Morgan through Mike Castellano, who I let him know that as younger, him and Warren Johnson were heroes of mine. And then it really struck me as afterwards we were getting ready to leave, and Daryl Gwen got out of his van and came over to see me and congratulate me. And then we took some pictures afterwards, and then I walked away with my wife, and I'm like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
well, you said something too in your top end interview that kind of caught me off guard. You said that you were actually considering quitting racing and that you weren't having fun recently, but this, that moment kind of
Yeah.
had
we got him
resparked
for
that
another
you.
5 years at least now,
Yeah.
Mike.
So
we got him.
for
We got
sure.
a hook.
We mortgaged my house last week, so I'm back.
I'm
sure.
back, baby.
But what led to that? I mean, you know, I that kind of caught me off guard, really. And I know you've had great success in PDRA and Outlaw Racing and now in NHRA. What was kind of leading to that thought process? And then, you know, obviously after the Indy win, is that out of the window now? That's out of your mind?
Yeah. It's so, and it's hard because you know, in PDRA or even Ducks races and all the Florida stuff that we've won, you have a little bit time to decompress before you have to talk to somebody. Plus, you can kind of push, you know, like at the end of the track, if Don O'Neill's there, he'll give me a minute. Well, I come around the corner and Fox had the camera in the car. That the blonde girl,
Amanda.
Yep. She was right there with the mic.
That's how we get the good stuff. That's the way you do it.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie. So I've been racing 30 years. Heads up, you know, I raced Northeast Pro Mod, my first Pro Mod race in '93, and the last couple years, you know, we've been racing harder and harder. And me and Jamie Miller and Johnny Miller and Denny Denny's been with me for 30 years. I've never raced without Denny, and we're both getting in our mid 50s. And I'm sick of hotels, and I'm sick of airplanes, and I'm sick of restaurant food, and I'm just thinking I'm getting tired of it. The problem is, after winning that race, you realize that all your friends are at the track. Everybody that matters to me from 30 years, like Troy from Mark Mickey's deal. And these are guys that, like, we cried together. And if you can maybe not see a guy, I might run into Brent Saucier and not seen him for 2 years, but I run into him at a duck race and it's like we talked every day. But when I'm home, it's the same thing. Your friends at home aren't the same as your friends at the track. Your friends at the track, those are your people. Those are your family. And that's what I realized this week and this season, because Scott and them guys have taken me in at a time where maybe I needed a little bit of change, and they've given me, they've treated me like family. I mean, Scott has been great. All those guys on that team, Brandon, Chris Terry, everybody, Pat.
Yeah, we said last week that Scott Tidwell has done so much for Pro Mod and Door Slammer,
and radio
Door
racing,
Slammer racing across the board, that he's an unsung hero at this point of the NHRA Pro Mod series and a lot of this stuff. So what's it been like, you know, like you said, racing with those guys? What's different about that?
Because I got to ask, like, real quick, though, like, for someone who's been around this for so long, Ken, and was doing it on your own, fighting the good fight since 1993, I mean, you think about 30 years committed to a craft. I mean, in drag racing, we're blessed to have a lot of people that have put in that kind of time. But if you ask anybody, you know, you bump into somebody that tells you that they're a bass fisherman, more than likely they've been fishing for 3 months, just got into it. And are they going to do that for 30 years? I don't know, you know? So I got to give you, and really so many others, just like, thank you for having the fortitude that it takes to stay committed to this for so long. But I got to know, what did it feel like to have your phone ring and someone want you to drive their car? Because I think that's the phone call that every drag racer dreams of getting. Someone wants me to drive for them.
Yeah. And so last year I was doing some stuff with Tim Wallace, and we really tried to put that 55 deal together. And Scott was the same way. He wanted to do something this year. And my daughter, Kelsey, has said that, like, I deserve this. But as you guys know, you're grinding it out every day, and you don't think you deserve this. But this was a perfect opportunity with perfect people at the right time for me. And if it wasn't for this, I don't know what I'd be doing, because I don't know I don't know how much at home I'm missing, because every weekend I race 20 times a year, and it's, you know, this is all I do. This is my whole life. And so I don't know, like, thinking, oh, maybe I could take a step back, but I'm a junkie. is all I can
told
say.
this. I mean, it's what it is. It's a sickness, and once it gets in you, it's hard to shake free from it. Looking forward, Ken, we're in the road to the championship. We saw the NHRA Pro Mod Series introduce this new concept to tighten things up toward the end of the season. We got 3 races left. We're getting ready to head to Concord, to the Taj Mahal of drag strips, Z-Max Dragway, right in Mike Carpenter's backyard. That's what it was.
Yeah.
The Bellagio of drag races.
Copyrighted.
That shows you I've never even been there.
Well, beautiful facility. To me, it's like awe-inspiring that they would even build some shit like that for a drag race. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Whenever I roll up, and every time, and I've been to Z-Max, I don't know how many times now, dozens. But every time I take the turn off whatever street that is into the racetrack, and I just think they built this to have drag races. I mean, this isn't it's overwhelming in a lot of ways, but and shout out to Speedway Motorsports, because it's incredible what they've done for our sport. But we got 3 races left: Charlotte, Madison, St. Louis, Missouri, right across the river from downtown St. Louis, and of course, Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm so excited to see the series end again in Vegas. I think it's just more fitting. I know it's a huge challenge and a massive burden logistically for all these teams to travel that far west at the end of the season, but it really does add some sizzle to that final race of the year. But I mean, what's your thoughts headed into this final stretch here, man? I mean, obviously you're feeling good, riding high, but you've got some really, really tough competitors. You mentioned Lyle, but he's not alone. There's a lot of really great drivers, really great teams, really strong equipment. You feel like you've got your work cut out for you here to seal the deal?
I mean, I don't want this to come off wrong, but I feel as though right now we are in such a good spot as a team. We've clicked. I have so much confidence going forward. I mean, barring, as far as my driving, I feel good about my driving right now, as long as I can just keep staying focused, and barring any failures with the car, I think everybody has to know that we're going to be a team that they're going to have to get by, and they know they're going to have to go 20s on the tree against me. And they know with Brandon tuning the car, they're going to have to get down the track, and it's going to have to be fast. So I'm glad I'm here and not in 4th place or 5th place or 3rd place. So going forward, I think we just have to keep doing what we're doing. And then with the group of guys I'm with, as long as they keep me in the right mental state, I think we're going to be very hard to beat.
I couldn't argue that point, to be honest with you, Ken. I didn't want to. I knew, I was like, Ken's so soft spoken. I don't know if because I was hoping that you would give me that response, because that's how I would feel. I mean, looking at your performance really throughout the year, but especially these last few races, you can see from even afar that it's happening. There's a harmonious thing happening. And I had this conversation with Mark Mickey earlier in the week. Just momentum matters a lot in drag racing. This sport will crush you. And it's easy to stay mired in that, right? Like, we're lost. We don't know. We'll never find our way back. And but when you have these moments, these high tide moments, it can really have a significant impact. I mean, what's been the reaction? You're a little bit of a fresh face, right, on the NHRA Pro Mod scene. It's pretty unusual that we see someone come in that we've not seen before. I mean, you're probably the only driver in the points that's never been to Z-Max. I mean, is it kind of fun to come in as an outsider? Because personally, I know that I'm cheering you on because you're my outlaw guys. I'm going, my outlaw 8th mile guys are showing up and showing out, and that's what I want to see. But how has it been, like, the reception from this community of racers? I got to give a tip of the cap to Debbie, Bud, Eric Dillard, Justin Elks, Mike Janis Jr., all these guys that have kind of rallied the troops. Scott Tidwell bringing out this trailer at every event, providing I walked by, and I can't tell you how proud I was, because I've had this conversation with almost all those aforementioned people about how important it is to embrace the community aspect of this. Because it's serious business, and we all hate each other sometimes, and everybody gets up in arms about rules and this and that and the other, but we do share a common passion. We are very much cut from the same cloth. And when I walked by Friday night, I believe it was, and I saw all of y'all having dinner together, I thought the Pro Mod Series the NHRA Pro Mod Series is in a good place. But tell me how they've welcomed you in.
I mean, they've been great. So luckily, pretty much everybody has known me from the outlaw side, and guys like Jason Struggs, who I really look up to and stuff. And when I race him, he says to me straight up, he goes, I can't take you lightly at all because of the outlaw racing. And we've won a lot of races in Florida. We won races in PDRA. So these guys all kind of know who I was. And they know I race a lot. So the one thing, that made me feel good is everybody kind of took me serious. Everybody knew, and you could see it. A lot of guys, when they race against me, they maybe cut good lights because they know they have to. And, I was talking to one of them earlier in the season, and we were talking about runs, and he only gets to run NHRA because of his work schedule. And he was like, well, he goes, you got more runs than me. And I said, well, probably at this point, he might have only had 25 runs in a car in 2024. I already had 150 runs in a car at that point. So they know that, and being part of Proline, all my runs are pretty much they're good runs. So we get a lot of data. I get a lot of good seat time, and they know they have to take it serious. So that part made me feel good because I am shy. And I was worried that I wasn't going to be accepted, but everybody's been great. Like it's been better than I expected. And now they're like family to me. And even the NHRA officials are, the people at the scale and the people at the fuel check, everybody now knows who I am that didn't know me because I was an outlaw racer. And now they're starting to come around. So it's a perfect situation for me right
and it's
now.
a badge of honor. I hope you know that. I mean, that's because for you to come into that scene that's seen some of the greatest names in the history of drag racing. I mean, I think of Ricky Smith and Mike Castellano. You mentioned him, Shannon Jenkins, all the people that have been world beaters, Vaughn Smith, Josh Hernandez. I mean, the list go Troy Coughlin. I mean, there's been so many super established, respected drag racers in that. And I can imagine in that scene, and I can imagine how intimidating that would be to try to squeeze into that world. But what an honor it is to be respected by them. And by God, you deserve it, Ken. Congratulations, man. We're so happy for you. Great family that's doing great things for our sport. And I say this, there's several of you that are such great ambassadors for our sport that it's fantastic when you win, and it helps, it elevates the whole game. So thank you so much, man. Congrats, and I can't wait to see you in Charlotte.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it, brother. Talk soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Well, we are going to start winding this bad boy down. I want to give a huge shout out to all of our guests today. Of course, Travis, the Carolina Kid, Harvey, Big J Harper, and Ken Quartuccio Jr. Great conversation today. Got a lot of ground covered. A lot of great drag racing going on, man. I do want to take a second and remind you all that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by way of our friends at flowracing.com. If you're a drag racer or a drag racing fan, you got to get on board with Flow Racing, the world leader in sports live streaming. Flow Racing provides unlimited access to drag racing's biggest events, every stop on the PDRA Tour, World Cup Finals, Streetcar Super Nationals, World Series of Pro Mod, U.S. Street Nationals, Snowbird Outlaw Nationals, and much, much more. Flow Racing is a fixture in my life. I've almost worn out the app on my phone. Everywhere I go, I'm able to enjoy drag racing, and it's really how blessed we are in this day and age to be able to follow along with all the best drag racing action in the world from the comfort of our own homes, our hotel rooms, airplanes, wherever you may roam. You can catch all the drag racing action you possibly can handle on flowracing.com. Guys, I was going to spend a little bit of time telling you about my less than stellar first outing with my new race car, but I think I'll save that for next week, man. It's honestly nothing really to report. If I had anything to report, last week was a significant reminder of just how hard this shit is to do.
And don't line up beside a pro mod your first pass out.
Right.
If you can help it.
Yeah. If you can help it. I mean, okay, I'll tell you this story quickly just so people can hear it. My second time ever in my new race car, and I'm excited and I'm feeling pretty good. I'm not nowhere near as like any of the guys that we've been talking to today, but I feel comfortable. Car's solid. I feel good. Nothing leaking, nothing falling off of it. I feel like we're comfortable. We go up to make what's going to be the first nitrous pass in the car and hopefully try to go fast, So we go up, and as we're going through the staging lanes, I'm seeing Norman Bryson screw-blown 69 Camaro Pro Mod like up at the top of the lanes, and I'm going, surely
you're like someone else go around me. Let someone else.
I should have. In hindsight, I should have just said, "Hey guys,
I know these things, man. We did that.
Get out and act like you're working on something."
Go ahead. Well, I was already in the car. Like I'm at the stage where I'm like, I'm getting in the car 15 cars back. Like I'm not Erica Enders or Ricky Smith out trekking the track temp when I'm a pair back. You know what I mean? Like I'm not that guy. So I'm 15 cars back, belted in this son of a bitch, right? I mean, like Jimmy Dale's there with me, getting me boomed in. Jim Staples, the guy I bought the car off of, he's helping me get strapped in. I want to be ready when the time comes. So anyways, as I'm being pushed forward, I'm getting closer and closer to Norman Bryson. I mean, and this dude's there to match race Frankie Taylor. He's there to match race Frankie the Madman Taylor. So he's testing.
Yeah.
I just want to make a single pass. And if everybody could leave, that would be even better, right? Because as we're rolling through the staging lanes, I just keep bumping into people that I didn't expect to see. I was under the impression that Wednesday at XRP was going to be something of a private test session. So I was excited. I'm thinking 8 cars. This is perfect. I'm going to get to make a bunch of runs.
This is this past Wednesday, right?
This is this past Wednesday.
Yeah, so everybody's getting ready for Big Jake.
But Big Jake's deal wasn't supposed to start really till Thursday, I guess. So I kind of thought I was
it started like last Sunday. Judging by social media.
100%. So I was kind of hoping that I could squeeze in there on Wednesday night and get some runs in, right? And then get the hell out of Dodge, because I don't want my shit on the property at that race, because I'm not ready for that level of drag racing, right? So anyways, as I'm inching forward, every 2 steps I'm bumping into somebody like Marcus Burt, the Axeman. He's like, "Hey Wes, what are you doing in there? Are you racing?"
Nothing.
Nothing. Just keep walking, And then I roll forward a little bit more. Patrick Barnhill. Great. Lee White. It just keep going. Corey Swanstrom. Big Country comes by and he's like, "Wes, what are you doing in there?" He's like, "Is that yours?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "I had one of those when and it's so every few feet I'm bumping into some other Kenny Hubbard, Jeff Nizer. Everywhere I look is like a drag racing legend. And I'm going, this is not how you want to
This is one of the hardest things about drag racing, and
really
why
is.
we talk about the pressure and the barrier to entry, because this is like worst case scenario for nerves.
I don't know
heart rate. And
I don't know that you could have produced a worse environment. Unless they had me like run before Top Fuel at the U.S. Nationals, it couldn't have been much worse. You know what I mean? But that's what it felt like. I'm like, holy shit. So anyways, as I'm inching forward, I'm getting closer and closer to Norman Bryson in that black Pro Mod. And I'm going, please, God, don't run both lanes. Please don't run both lanes. And we come under the tower thing there, the suites at XRP, and I end up right beside this blown Pro Mod.
You're trying to signal to the lanes guy, the head of the lanes or the starter or whoever. "Can I make a single? Can it just one?
Yeah.
Just one?" And he's going, "Hell no, pairs."
He points at both of us.
Yeah, pairs.
And I'm like,
getting out of here at a decent time.
Shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now I also I respect all these guys so much that I don't want to, they're testing a $500,000 Pro Mod car. Like, I don't want to disrupt what they're doing. I'm jacking around, right? Like, I guess it's all relative. So, it is what it is, but I didn't want to disrupt their thing. So I'm immediately feeling like pressure to hurry up because I don't want to slow them down. So they crank up this screw blower car and I'm like, I can't even hear my car. Like, I start my car and I'm like looking at the tag, like it's running
at all. Yeah.
No, I can't. Like, oh my God.
Think.
So I put it in low and roll up, and they've got me doing rolling burnouts, which I don't have a lot of experience with rolling burnouts. The car doesn't even have a line lock on it, which I may fix because I'm kind of a line lock guy, but everybody does rolling burnouts in these radial cars. Like, everybody does a Stevie J. Pro Mod is what it is. It's the old blower Pro Mod, roll through the water and whack it. All these guys are trying to be Pro Mod racers, right? So anyways, I'm trying to get better at doing these rolling burnouts. So anyways, I do a burnout and I'm backing up and I'm looking out my window and I'm like, I'm next to a mid 3-second door car. Like, this is probably not an ideal situation, right? So I back up, and this is our first nitrous pass too, right? So Jimmy Dale slows the passenger door open, leans in, turns the bottle on. I'm purging the bottle down, looking at the nitrous pressure gauge and looking over to make sure that I'm not holding them up, So I'm like, okay. So anyways, I roll in and I light the top bulb, and here comes Norman Bryson, and he lights the top bulb, and I go in because I don't want to hold him up, because I'm not really. I needed a second, to be honest. Like,
what would be hilarious is if you hung Norman Bryson out. You're like, nah, bro, it's a bird. You're staging first.
That's what Jimmy Dale. Whenever I get back to the pitch, Jimmy Dale's like, you got to run your own race. And I'm like, what? I can't run I'm not ready for that conversation, bro.
Man.
So anyways, he rolls in and I immediately roll in and turn the bottom bulb on because I don't want to screw this cat up, and I wasn't quite ready, I guess. And so anyways, he rolls in and he puts that son of a bitch on the 2-step and it scared the shit out of me. I mean, like, I just wasn't ready for it, because I can't even hear my car idling. You know what I mean? So literally, I'm doing the old 2-foot bumping in, trying to stage like Stevie Jackson. You know what I mean? So I'm pumping the brake, just trying to barely turn on the bottom bulb. So as soon as I do, he whacks this thing, puts it on the deck, and it's that whole deal. And as soon as he did that, I let off the trans brake, let off the gas pedal. I have made a total fool out of myself. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So anyways, I rolled down the track and, classic. And Jimmy gave me a talking to about that. He said, hey man, in Texas, if you don't make the trip, you always back up and try again. And I'm like, I ain't backing up and try again. He's like, dude, you're at an outlaw track in Texas. When that happens, you stop and you back up and try again. And I'm like, I'm not quite ready for that, dude.
You might have got your single that way.
I probably would have gotten my single that way.
That's one strategy. And you probably just wanted to take that turn off and just go up, just get on the highway and drive it home.
It was so humiliating, So anyways, I idle down the track and take the turn off. And anyways, get back to the trailer and they're like, what happened? And I'm like, scared the shit out of me. Like, gotta be honest. Like that was louder than I anticipated it being, and it's not like it was the fact that I couldn't hear my car. It was just not a great situation for me. But anyways, so then we go back up and at this point there's like 40 freaking cars in the staging lanes, and every one of these cars is a fast car. And so every run takes 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, So anyways, I'm at the back of the staging lanes and we finally get to the top of the staging lanes to make what would be our third pass of the night. And I'm like, at this point, it's midnight or some shit. It's late at night. And I'm going, all right, this is it. Like we're making a lick right here. This is going to be a good run. And I'm going right back to the trailer and I'm going home. Like, I just want to leave now, And so anyways, I reach over, turn the power on because I've got like the connector runs or whatever. So power on in the car, reach up, turn the ignition on, fuel pump, water pump, everything, fire the car up or go to fire. And I'm like,
she did.
Okay. And Jim Staples leans in and he goes, yeah, I was kind of worried about that. We probably didn't have it on the charger long enough. And I'm like, he's like, what do you want to do? And I said, go home immediately. I said, well, and I should have my ass kicked anyways, because like my dad would kill me if he knew that I went to the track without another battery or whatever. So I've already got 2 on the way. Shout out to Jonathan at Featherlight. I got 2 16-volt batteries on the way and a charger. I told him never going to the track again without my dad. We used to be made fun of. It's not quite as crazy as Mark Woodruff, Woody and Woody Mart, but I mean everybody knew that my dad's trailer, Buck Brothers Racing, he's got 10 starters for Chevrolets, he's got 70 batteries, he's got 4, he's got water pumps, fuel pumps, everything that you could possibly need. He's got 3 or 4 of them.
We did the same thing. We had a board on right beside the door inside the trailer, a marker board, dry race board with the list of who owes what, and it was always a mile long. But my dad, this is funny, we joke about this all the time. My dad me, Paul, anybody that went racing with us, when we heard him say this, we knew what was happening. But somebody would come up. My dad's never seen this person at all. Hey, man, do you have a blah, 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 blah? And we knew we have it. I know exactly where it is in my mind. My dad will go, man, you know what? I sure don't. I'm sorry, or whatever. And then the guy would walk off and we would all just give each other the look. We're like, yeah, there would have sure don't. If my dad says, no, I sure don't. Yeah, we got it. You just ain't getting
it. It's so crazy, man. But that's the whole thing is like JT was saying, like, hey man, you learned something. And we did learn a lot, like just different things that I need to have with me. But we went from 0 to race program inside of about a month, truck, trailer, race car, tools, equipment, various things. And we'll get there, man. But I tell you what, if I took anything away from Big Jake's race this weekend, I ain't ever going to tell you guys what it runs. I'm diving into the grudge game.
Yeah, we ain't got to start now.
We ain't never lighting for a year.
Ain't never get ready for next year.
Ain't never lighting the boards. Never, ever. Because I want to be in that race. So, anyways, guys, hey, thank you guys all so much for joining us here.
Well, wait a minute now.
Oh, wait,
we heard we got your story in. we got to talk some odds going into this
Oh,
weekend.
yes,
JT,
we do got to talk some odds.
I wanted to run through these because JT had some interesting points. He is going to do, you guys are going to do who you got this week, right? So we're going to see that
in 15 minutes. I think they film it.
Yeah, pretty soon you guys are going to film this. But let's still get a little preview of these odds for this week going into
the
Maple
NHRA
Grove.
Pet Boy Nationals in Maple Grove Raceway. Yeah, what do we got here, JT?
Here's the pro stock odds. And yeah, man, Greg and Eric is still up top, but hot hand here probably is what, Aaron Stansfield.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Aaron is not higher, just considering the run he's had here in the second half of the season. But like you said the interesting one is Corey Reed.
Corey Reed.
Look at him.
I mean, he was plus 8,000 something, 8,240 something or something like that, you know, just a short while ago. And he's up there like in the what, top 10 at least, you know, in front of Hartford and Tucker and the Quadras. I mean, that's incredible. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I think Corey, this is going to be a fantastic thing for Corey Reed. I just think that he's in a competitive spot. He's on a good team. They're going to have
the Pro Stock Caveman. I think that's like his official name now.
Pro Stock Caveman. I like that. But I am actually, to your point, JT, a little surprised to see Greg and Erica at the top of that list, because I honestly think undoubtedly the hottest hands in Pro Stock right now are Aaron Stanfield and Dallas Glenn. Like, I don't know that you can really look. I mean, obviously, Jeg's been running
the old guard, new guard.
It is a little bit of an old guard, new guard.
You know, though, if I was betting this, you know, I would probably sprinkle some money on all four of those, and maybe even Jeggy too.
Well, look at the odds with the odds numbers.
Right,
you can do that.
So if you did, if you can literally place money on a bunch of these guys and then end up quite a bit ahead.
It's pretty interesting, man. I'm glad to see those fresh faces at the top. Let's dive into Funny Car or Pro Stock or Top Fuel.
What was that? Pro Stock Motorcycle? What are you doing here?
Here's Top Fuel.
Okay, so we got Doug Coletta out front, plus 774. Steve Torrance right behind him. I mean, incredible. Doug Coletta broke a 100+ race streak, right, at Indy with his first E&Q and seemingly forever.
What about
Justin Ashley?
Look at Jasmine Salinas. She's up there 5th in the odds. Clay 7th. He's getting a bump, post-Indy bump.
Clay jumped quite a bit too, you know, here recently. And so is Ida down here. She's at 1861 now. Her odds when she first came in were crazy high, you know. So they're starting to see this. Tony Stewart, you know, he just keeps getting better and better.
Oh, be there, no doubt. He's so due that if they don't win a race here during the countdown, I will be absolutely shocked. I mean, I think like there's a couple of these guys that, I mean, obviously Doug Coletta is going to be in the conversation till the bitter end. Steve Torrance, Justin Ashley, Antron Brown. I'd argue also Sean Langdon, Clay Millican. But it's just, this just kind of highlights how competitive Top Fuel is. I mean, there's no ducks really hardly at all on that list. I mean, a few, you know, guys that don't get to a lot of races, but geez Louise, man. I mean, it's some hitters, and Funny Car doesn't look much friendlier. Austin Prock,
really doesn't.
I mean, this kid is on an absolute roll. I believe you told us at the beginning of the show that JFR is it JFR you said had the most wins in Maple Grove? Oh, it was Jack Beckman.
Yeah. Jack Beckman.
But he's driving for JFR now. So you're talking about a driver who has had historic success at Maple Grove.
Yeah, I mean, like I guess the car that went to the final against Robert Hite last year, who won the event, was John Force, I think. So he's in that car, and it's won recently. So yeah, I mean,
what do you guys make of,
it's gonna be good weather?
Prock?
So then you got Tasca here, who maybe he gets that 340 done in the NHRA this weekend.
That's true. Is that a prop bet anywhere?
No, it should be. Me and Elon and Rex have been talking about that. We need to get some more prop bets going. We also need to add pro mod to this stuff. That would be fun, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean that definitely get me more on board with it. What do you guys make of where we're at with Austin Prock though right now? Just in terms of like we were talking this whole episode about the difference that momentum makes. I don't know that we've seen. I mean, outside of like Gage Herrera, right? But we're seeing like some historic levels of success from rookies or relative fresh faces. I'm just blown away and really impressed with what Austin Prock is doing right now. Like he is absolutely driving the wheels off that hot rod. And I don't know that there's a car that you could. Who do you pick against Austin Prock right now?
It's tough, man. I mean, obviously with the countdown reset, it bunched everybody back up, but he's going into this race, number one, 39 points back is Tasca. Hagan is 46 points back. I mean, all these points can still be made up. With the
Grant Blake says Proc's championship to lose, not
That's
win.
what I was going to say the same thing, Grant, that it's basically his to lose in my eyes.
But yeah, then you got Gage over here at minus 202 still.
Gage still the only one in minus odds.
Yeah, and I like I said, I just don't think you're going to see it again, but who knows? But here, you probably wouldn't put your money there.
But look at like Angie, right? I mean, she's been running well. Look at those odds, 24.97.
Yep. That's wild.
Put 100 down, and if Angie wins, you're netting $2,497.
Not a bad day.
Not a bad day. I'm glad to see Chase Van Zandt up there at the top. We love us some Chase Van Zandt around here. Drag Illustrated 30 under 30 member, and Matt Smith, man, just really, really fighting the good fight. And
I'll call him and make sure he's ready.
It's the funniest story.
Did you tell that story, or was that off air?
Yeah, I told it on here.
That is so funny, dude. But no, Matt. This is going to be a dogfight. We got William. We got a guy in the comments saying right here, Matt Smith will win it this year. It's going to take an act of God, but I guess that is the. You can't count out Matt Smith, right? I mean, he is a racer's racer.
He's only 20 points back.
He's only 20 points back.
Richard Gadsden's 33 back.
It's going to be a dogfight. And I think that you see guys, this is where you see champions like Matt Smith. This is where the difference really shows up, right? I mean, you've got a guy who's been there before, been in these razor thin battles where all the heat is on him. There are several of them that we've been blessed to witness in this sport over the years, but there is a difference. Those guys that have that championship medal, they've been there before. They've been in those situations that are likely fairly unfamiliar to a Gage Herrera. Despite the success he's had, we are now down to the nitty gritty. And this is we're gonna see the men separated from the boys out here, and I'm excited to see what happens, man. I do think NHRA has been really exciting this year. It's been a lot of fun to watch. We've seen a lot of different winners. I mean, obviously you've seen Austin Prock and Gage Herrera have be fairly dominant, but just not even winners, but just new faces going rounds. I mean, I think about seeing Eric Latino in Pro Stock. I never thought we'd see Eric Latino.
It's all about the fresh faces.
It's
really
the fresh
every
faces.
Class. Every class has got them this year, and we're like, you just named Eric Latino. Pro Stock's got a ton of them. Austin Prock is a new one in funny car. There's several there, several in Top Fuel. We just talked about Chase Van Zandt. I mean, he was up there, third in those odds, and he's a newcomer. So lots of fresh blood, man. We talked about that, the youth movement across the board. We've talked about that in so many classes, even outside of NHRA. We are seeing some fresh blood in the sport, and that's so vital to
speaking of blood outside of the NHRA. Mark Mickey getting some weight hung on him after good performance.
I think that may be
kind of melted social media down yesterday a little bit. I
think that may be like the most significant weight penalty I've ever seen like that quickly. Do you think that's accurate? I don't know that there's ever been a race where somebody had 100 pounds put on them.
It's pretty significant. The thing is, where you're going to go, you can't go any heavier. Literally, that car at that combination, if he sticks with that, is as heavy as it can get. So that's what we're staring down the barrel of.
And I think that's probably like the next hurdle for pro modified racing to really get over, is just understanding that we've got to find another way to manage the performance of these cars beyond just hanging weight on them. Because I'm already, feeling like you're saying, Mike, we've got them right up against SFI limit. Their cars are certified to 2,800 pounds, and we are on the ragged edge of that in some cases. And we can't let them get any heavier. God knows they're not getting any slower, but we are going to have to get our arms around it.
Maybe
I mean, obviously,
Mark on next week. Talk about it.
Well, we will definitely have probably the winner of the SmackDown coming up at Flying H Drag Strip, their big production they're putting on next week. I'm anxious to see how Mark, for me, the story is going to be how Mark recovers, because going back to the conversation of the day, maybe the word of the day, momentum. The guy's on a roll. I mean, he won 2 races in one weekend. It went 359, I think, off the trailer. First run down that track ever, goes into the 50s. He's on a roll. They've got a tremendous amount of momentum. They've made a ton of runs. They've been running the wheels off that car, and you kind of got to
index 360.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's damn near a 360 bracket car. And I'm anxious to see, because that's going to tell the tale, right? Like, what happens this weekend? Does he make some changes? Does he just show up with 100 extra pounds
that's
on it?
next weekend. So
Yeah, next weekend.
we'll have to have the winner on the following week. Maybe we can get a little preview going into next week. But it's time to look at the weather. I'm looking at
it's time to look at the weather.
I'm looking at, I mean, it's 10 days out, right? Yeah, we're 10 days out.
Check this out, Jack. Real quick, Jack Stevens. Scotty Cannon got 100 pounds, I believe it was, about 25 years ago, and set the new record at the next race. I've got to be honest. If I was a betting man, and I'm not, well, I'm a little bit. I venture to say that we're not going to see. I can't wait. Let me just say,
right now they're calling for at SmackDown, Kansas City. Friday high of 83, low 65, then 70s with lows in the 60s. Sunday high 77, low 59. So it could get pretty gnarly.
That's one of the things that I think people have somewhat overlooked, is how incredible the conditions were in Martin this weekend. Mm-hmm. That is well known as one of the greatest racing surfaces on the planet Earth. Jason Peterson and his whole team at US 131.
Back in the day when we raced 131, we would come in and think we had our combination where it needed to be. We were always light on clutch. We almost couldn't get enough clutch in it at that place. I know that's a weird thing, right? Clutch, but we used to run clutches back in the day, and that's what we had to work with. So that place has always been awesome, and the weather tends to be really good there.
They were damn near at sea level there Saturday night, and I do think it was a little bit of a stars and moon aligning. I wish we could have gotten to see a final. Both cars make the trip under power in the final, because it may have lessened some of the reaction we've seen online. If the car in the other lane would have made a representative run, and Mickey would have made a representative run in the final. But no, really incredible performance from those guys. They've got a serious hot rod, and I think 100 pounds heavier or not, they're still a threat to win this thing. It's a little bit of a home field advantage for the Missouri boys there, going not too far from home, not having to travel across the country to go race or anything like that. So it probably lends itself to being a big weekend for Mark Mickey and company, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see that blue 69 Camaro in the winner's circle at the SmackDown. That's for what it's worth. I do think it's still going to be a hot rod. We're going to have to think about this in different terms. It's like we were talking earlier. We've got to take power away from these cars, not throw more weight on them. And that's kind of the next frontier is, I mean, for the Drag Illustrated Winter Series, we're working towards a spec turbo, because that's going to be really the only answer, in my opinion. So,
yep.
But anyways, guys, well, hey, thank you all. And seriously, we couldn't do this without you guys. It's fun to shoot the shit with JT and Mike, and I'm sure it would have been fun to have Big Jake and Travis Harvey with us and Ken Quartuccio, but it's a whole lot more fun with all of you. Please help us spread the gospel of drag racing. Subscribe to the Drag Illustrated YouTube channel if you haven't already. Just right down there in the corner, just click that bad boy and join a growing family of people that see the world the way that you do. And we'll see you next week right here on the Wes Buck Show. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you then.
Thanks, guys.
See you.
Man, that's poetic.
Was it?
Oh, yeah.